Ronald Wilson Reagan was born in the small town of Tampico, Illinois in 1911. His parents, John Edward Jack Reagan and Nellie Wilson, lived in a series of towns, eventually opening up a shoe store in Dixon, Illinois in 1920. Growing up, Ronald was given the nickname Dutch from his father's view of him being a fat little Dutchman. In 1928, he graduated from Dixon High School. After graduation, he headed to Eureka College in Illinois, where he received an athletic scholarship for football, track, and swimming. Also at Eureka, he served as student council, president, and acted in school productions. After graduating and receiving a degree in economics and sociology, Reagan received a job as a sports radio announcer in Iowa. After that, he found himself in Hollywood, where he signed a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers. Over the next 3 decades, he acted in over 50 movies, starring in the movie Newt Rockne, where he portrayed a Notre Dame football player. In 1940, he married movie actress Jane Wyman, with whom he had a daughter and adopted a son. During this time, World War II was coming into the midst. Although Reagan was disqualified from combat due to poor eyesight, he spent his time in the Army shooting training videos. After the Army, Reagan served as the president of the Screen Actors Guild, which eventually got involved into politics when the Hollywood blacklist came into the picture.
In 1981, a union of air traffic controllers went on strike during Reagan's presidency. Reagan threatened to fire them if they did not return to work. A very large number of the air traffic control employees were fired and replaced immediately. Kemp-Roth tax cut was amended the Internal Revenue Code of 1954. The aim of it was to encourage the economic growth through reduction of individual tax rates and expensing the depreciable property. The war on drugs was a campaign of prohibition undertaken by the U.S. government. Its intentions were to both define and reduce the illegal drug trade. This included a set of laws and policies that were intended to discourage the production, distribution, and consumption of targeted substances. Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate U.S. President Ronald Reagan in Washington, D.C. on March 30, 1981. This was accumulation of an effort to impress an actress by the name of Jodie Foster. Reagan was just wounded along with the press secretary and a Secret Service agent.
Ronald Reagan, unlike the presidents before him who used MAD, or mutually assured destruction, Reagan implemented the policy of peace through strength. This policy led to warming relations with the Soviet Union and the eventual end of the Cold War. To implement strength, Reagan increased defense spending and made many programs to increase both defensive and offensive abilities. Some such programs are the Strategic Defense Initiative, commonly known as the Star Wars program, and the creation of the MX missile and B-1 bomber. In addition to the Star Wars program, within all of NASA the emphasis was changed from one of science to a more militaristic view. The policy in South America was, for the most part, doing whatever it took to stop the spread of communism. This was most prevalent when in 1981 Reagan declared Nicaragua a Soviet outpost and took away all aid and gave it to the rebels, before approval from Congress, even after the Boland Amendment not allowing aid to the Contras. The Reagan administration found ways to help them. In the Middle East, the policy was to stop the sale of arms to Iran during their war with Syria. However, the Reagan administration's Oliver North went against the trade embargo and sold Hawk and Tau missiles to Iran in order to release U.S. hostages and gave the profits to the Contras in direct violation to the Boland Amendment. While one reporter said he could answer to charges of illegality, but couldn't answer to the charge that big, strong President Reagan passed up a chance to free the hostages.
President Reagan had a lot of great legacies when he was in term. He restored America after all the wars that was going on and all the chaos that was happening. Reagan had a plan to restore America after everything that was happening, and he sure did restore America. One of the most important legacies that Reagan had was a peaceful ending to the Cold War. The war was going on for way too long and it needed to be ended soon. He signed the treaty with the Russian president and the war was now over. That was one of Reagan's best legacies, was ending the war because it was going on for too long and he ended it peacefully, not harmfully. President Ronald Reagan also had a very big economic legacy. Before President Ronald Reagan took office, the economy was doing pretty bad. A lot of people didn't have jobs and people were starving all over. Reagan created a huge tax cut which led to a very big economic boom. He kept the inflation rate very low, which is a good thing for Americans. Reagan also created a lot of jobs for Americans when he was president. Before he was president, a lot of people needed jobs and didn't have jobs. President Reagan created a lot of jobs so that people could work and people could have money to support their family and to have money for food at night. President Ronald Reagan left a great impression of what the Republican Party was. Reagan was a great president who everybody loved. President Reagan said a great quote, "Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives." This quote means that the government should help the people and help them, not run their lives, not be in their lives 24/7. Reagan wanted to help people in America and try to get the United States back on a good path. Reagan sure did that. That's why he was a very good president who everyone loved and had a lot of great legacies. President Ronald Reagan, Reagan economics, is similar to John F. Kennedy's New Frontier because Ronald Reagan lowered taxes, kept fighting the war on drugs in America, and increased spending on national defense. John F. Kennedy had a program promising federal education and medical care for the elderly people. He also signed the Civil Rights Act of 1984. John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan both had deals to help out with America and help America's people out. John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan also kept the unemployment rate very low, which is a good thing. That is why we think John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan are similar in many different ways.